Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female. This is the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. Joining me on the show tonight is a woman who has been working on issues of hate speech, the harm that it brings, and how we can learn to disagree a little bit better. Murni Wan Mohd Nor is a senior lecturer at Universiti Putra Malaysia. She's also a consultant in a team of researchers working on the Universal Periodic Review on Human Rights. In her own words, Murni says that she cares deeply for fostering racial unity and interfaith understanding. It is my pleasure to welcome her to the show. Murni, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to chat to you.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Murni, so I understand you wear many, many different hats. So
Mhm.
not just a lecturer and someone who cares very deeply about the issue of human rights and interfaith communication, but you also do a lot of work on the issue of hate speech. And I
Right.
wanted to ask you about that. So maybe before we delve into what some people may seem to think as a quite a heavy topic. Let's
Mm-mm.
talk a little bit about some of the hats you wear and the different roles that you play within your life. So tell us a bit more about yourself, Murni.
I like to describe myself as a mom because I feel like that is really the epitome of who I am.
Hmm.
And I'm not embarrassed or shy to admit that because I feel sometimes in today's society uh, we kind of, do not highlight the role of mothers enough. And so I feel like this is who I am, and it's something that I'm really proud to be. At the same time, I really love being a working mom. I
Mm.
love being a lecturer, and I love teaching my students. And as corny as it may sound, it really gives me great satisfaction. And that's why I left the legal world. I was supposed to be a lawyer. I was well on my way, but I decided that it just wasn't for me, um, because there's nothing that I find more meaningful than engaging with my students and helping them to understand a particular topic that maybe they didn't understand before, and helping them realize certain values that maybe got lost in translation. For example, like the issue of hate speech, I love to help help them realize and to see what are the harms that it actually brings, because more often than not they're engaging in it without realizing that they're doing so. So that's just
Really?
a little bit, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, again, you think of hate speech as uh, something that people fall back on when they are ignorant or
Mm.
they want to be purposefully offensive. I'm wondering why you think that it's to do with the former, that some people are ignorant of what makes hate speech and what they say can be considered hate speech.
Right. I mean, I don't negate the fact that there are some people, and most people, when they engage in hate speech, they're doing it with intention. But there are also some people who have just become normalized with the kind of language. And so sometimes they don't even realize that what they're saying is actually offensive. And even the people who are becoming victims of hate speech, they are also desensitized by the kind of common racial slurs that they often hear. And
Mm.
so sometimes it's because they don't know better. They don't know that when they say this, it can actually result in great harm. They think that it's just like, banter
Right.
between friends, although it can be offensive, but we do tend to say, you know, poke fun with each other. Sometimes they do think it is that. So they don't understand the gravity of hate speech and what it can do, especially when we keep on repeating it.
Right. How did you come to work into this in this area? I understand that you've been working in this area for about 7 years now. You've got
Right.
a PhD looking at issues of hate speech. Can I ask you what triggered your interest in it? Is there something particular to um, the Malaysian society that you looked at the way we live and decided, well, I want to learn more about this. I want to research why we behave the way we behave.
Right.
What triggered it?
Well, actually, it's like the topic chose me, um, because I was about 1 month away from my defense of doing my PhD on for my proposal, and on a totally different topic. But somehow it just didn't click. It didn't jive. It didn't touch my heart. So 1 month before I was supposed to present my proposal, I was researching, and then I was reading on the issue of hate speech in other countries. And then it clicked to me that my experiences living in Malaysia and abroad, I have experienced hate speech many times in different forms and among different societies. Um, when I was in the US, I was targeted, for being Malay, for being Muslim. And then when I was growing up in the city, because I was wearing the hijab, I was made fun of because of that. And then when I went to an international Islamic university, I was apparently not religious enough. So the kind of comments that I received at different phases of my life, and even when I continued to be training as a lawyer, that these kind of comments continued. But it didn't make me bitter. It just made me realize that it is a common problem across all societies in every country that I've been at. And so rather than be triggered by it, rather than, you know, um, be reactive in a negative way, I really wanted to put my focus on trying to um, raise awareness on the issue, maybe come up with intervention methods so that this kind of problem wouldn't be so rampant in society. So I really wanted to do research on this so that I could help become part of the equation that solves the problem rather than perpetuate it.
I love that. I love that you want to be part of the solution and how we can, hopefully break the cycle. One of the things you said to me was that you believe hate speech is taught. And
Mm,
that resonated a lot with me because I think about how we learn hate, how we learn to use the words that we use, and
right.
how we sometimes can normalize hate speech in the form of, as you mentioned, jokes or banter.
Mm,
Can I ask you what you say, or what your research has shown you, has taught you
right.
about the ways hate speech hate speech manifests itself within families and communities and the harm that it causes? What
Right.
what has your research shown you?
Well, the research that I've conducted indicates that, um, particularly today, hate speech is most rampant on social media, of course.
Mm,
And, that is really dangerous because social media permeates our everyday life, and it's hard to run away from it. And all people from all societies, from different age groups, are on social media today. Even children as young as 7, 8 years old have social media accounts, and so they're exposed constantly to negativity, hatred, animosity online, and it's difficult for us to control. So that is what my research indicates. But it is also concerning that the research also indicates hate speech is um, also noticed in influential figures such as certain politicians or teachers, even, or within the home. And so that has been something that I've managed to identify in the research. And
right.
this is a research that we've conducted with the center.
Okay.
But through my own experiences, and my observations and my personal research, I also noticed that more often than not, it is something that is taught within the home, because when you have a child that's only 7 years old already resorting to racial slurs, um, you must ask yourself, where are they picking that kind of negativity from? And a child at such a tender age, they must be, observing the people around them, and that is most likely their parents. And as a young child, I was protected from all this because
Mm,
that was not the environment in which my parents raised me. And so when I went to school, I was shocked because apparently some people label mamas as a certain way, Chinese as a certain way, Malays as a certain way. And I was, surprised because I've never heard such stereotypes in my life.
Right.
And they would not want to sit or stand behind certain people at the assembly because they're coming from a particular race. And it hurt me. And so these are also one of the reasons why I wanted to research on hate speech, because I wanted to try to come up with a solution. I mean, I'm not an idealist. I know it can't be, it can't be like wiped away from this planet. It is going to always be there, but what can we do to reduce it? And what can we do to educate our children about it? Whether it's our own children, whether it's our students, whether it's our communities, whether it's our elderly parents, there's always a way to engage and create awareness with regards to this issue.
How do we do that, Murni? For those of us watching and learning today, what do we say when again hate speech is masked by the saying that it's a joke or it's banter. And
Right,
we've heard in the news about how certain threats can be dismissed as jokes. Can
right.
hate speech be dismissed as jokes? And what do we say to that? How do we correct that from happening again?
Right. So it's really a complicated subject, actually, and it requires a lot of debate and a lot of discussion. So I'm because freedom of speech is also important. We can't take offense with every single thing that's been said about us, even if it's offensive. There is a certain level of desensitization that we actually have to get used to, because we can't expect that everybody's going to be kind and say nice things to us. Um, at the same time, we need to teach people about the harms that hate speech brings, even though it initially starts off as stereotypical jokes. When you say
Mm,
"kayu malas," you think that there's nothing wrong with saying that. But when it keeps being repeated, it can result in many different harms. For example, it can result in the person itself that identifies as Malay in believing that indeed they are this way and there's not much that they can do about it.
right.
That's one. And it could also result in other people from other racial or religious groups thinking that Malays are only this way and therefore they shouldn't be hired for certain job positions. I've had certain statements like that being said to me by people within the legal profession. So it is something that is not helpful in creating harmonious racial and religious ties.
Mm,
And so, it is important to create awareness about the harms of hate speech, and uh, we can educate people in different ways about that, which is suitable to their level. For example, we can educate young children in a different way, we can educate high school students in a different way, university students in a different way. We can even teach this kind of awareness in corporations and organizations, which is what um, other countries practice as well.
I mean, when you look at other countries, do you see behavior that we should perhaps emulate, good practices in terms of policy intervention? Because again, being at home and we can always teach our children, our families, our communities, we can be an active participant. But when it comes to policy interventions, what do you see that you like and that you wish we could do here in Malaysia?
Right. So I want to say this. There is this perception that everything sometimes, when you go to other countries, particularly first world countries, that things there are better. And I have to say that that's not necessarily the case, because I've been to Sweden, I've been to many countries, and sometimes racism there is even worse than here. So I think that's something important that we need to acknowledge. But at the same time, some countries acknowledge that there is a big problem, and therefore
Mm,
they're making more active measures to stop or to intervene before things get worse. And so, what some countries do, like for example, Australia, they have cultural awareness trainings. UNESCO also has a module, a training, an online course that can be taught and implemented. And this is something that I'm personally trying to work on. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, to come up with a module that can be taught to school children, that can be also taught to the teachers, because teachers uh, are teaching students from different racial and religious groups.
Do you think we need that? Because we pride ourselves on being Asia, true Malaysia, truly Asia, being multicultural and respectful. But is it all surface? Is it superficial? Do we need training modules to learn about each other's culture?
Uh, Definitely, we do need training models, and it's not just about learning about their culture, but it's learning to be respectful, even if we don't agree. I think that needs to be taught. Some people do not even know that saying certain things about another person's ethnic or religious or racial identity is offensive, and so we need to teach them the tools, communication tools, what should be avoided. Even corporations around the world, they're having problems with this as well. So this is something that can be taught, that is suitable for different levels of society. For example, when I teach my daughter, when we were in Australia, living there for 6 months while I was doing my sabbatical research, I wanted her to get the full experience of being abroad and making friends from different ethnic, religious, and national groups. But I also wanted her to be proud of who she was. And I could anticipate that there would be some problems.
Mm.
Um, so I taught her beforehand that, when she sees somebody of a different religion, she should not say that their religion is wrong because they have their religion and we have ours. And she was only 5 at the time.
Wow.
And then when she came home from school, one of her best friends is a Caucasian Australian. And she told me, Ibu, my friend was asking me, do I believe in God? And then I asked her, what did she answer? And she said, she does believe in God. And then her friend responded, well, if you believe in God, why don't you go to the church? And what my daughter replied really touched me, because she said, I believe in God, but I go to the mosque. You have your religion and I have mine. And she was just 5,
Oh, wow.
and even when I tell this to you now, I'm getting goosebumps
I
because
I'm getting emotional hearing that a
me
child could be
too.
more respectful than some of the adults that I've met in my life. And wow, good job for you raising your daughter to be able to come up with that, to have the kind of the self-awareness to say that and not descend into being offended or being defensive.
Right,
So that's, I think, our reaction often is to get upset, and as you said, to want to lash out when someone
right,
says something we don't agree with.
right.
But what a wonderful response that she gave. How amazing.
Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. I mean, I wish I could take the credit, but I also realized that it is because of the way I was raised. And maybe some people are not fortunate enough to be coming from a background where this was taught, respect, and not just respect, but how do we talk to each other with kindness? How do we agree respectfully? All our of these values was something that Islam teaches us, but not all of Islam's adherents really grasp these values. But I was able to catch this because it was really practiced within the home. It wasn't something that my parents just said to us but never practiced. And so I saw with my own eyes, you know, what respect looked like. How can we disagree in a civil way, but still remaining um, true to our own principles and being critical? So I endeavored to teach that to my child. And and I don't even know if I'm doing it right, but I'm just going along. But when she said that, and last year when she wrote a poem on hate speech, because she sometimes listens in on my conversations and my talks, I don't know if she's picking up on what I'm saying, but apparently she does, because she was able to write her own poem and she was able to give that response at 5 years of age. And so it solidifies my belief that, you know, yes, hatred can be taught. And this is what Nelson Mandela has said as well, but people can also be taught to love, and I want her to balance that. I want her to understand that she can be friends with everybody. She can, be kind to everybody, but she can also be proud of who she is without compromising that.
And if we could just delve into that, right?
Mm,
Because, there's this picture of an ideal worker that is
right.
often represented by a man.
Mm-mm,
That is our in our head an ideal worker,
mm-mm,
and working women or working mothers seem to deviate from that picture of an ideal
mm-mm,
man.
mm-mm.
Having to take maternity leave, the
Right,
need for flexible hours, um, all of that is a part of the prejudices that women face or working mothers face in the workplace. And I was
right,
wondering, how do we go about acknowledging some of the biases that we hold, but
right.
also making sure that we stand up and support for our colleagues who may require that family friendly behaviors at work, men and women, not
Right.
not just working mothers.
Right. Thank you for bringing this question up. I think it's really important, and I'm really passionate about this, because when I gave birth to my first child, I didn't know that she was born with a tongue defect. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's called a tongue tie. It's a particular condition which makes her unable to nurse. But this was not made known to me, or my husband, although my instincts told me there was something wrong, and
Right.
so I had to go through maternity with a child who's not able to nurse all by myself, because my mother is also working, even though she's at a retiring age, but she's still, mashallah, she's, super gung
Still
ho.
working.
Yeah, works harder than
Wow.
me, maybe. Um, but my husband at the time, he was not working on his own. He was working for another law firm, and he had no paternity leave. I think he could only take about 3 days,
Wow.
and I had a C-section, and my child wouldn't stop crying because of her tongue condition, which I did not know at that time. And, it was so overwhelming. And the fact that men are not given paternity leave, then how do you expect equality to take place? You know,
Mm.
uh, by default, you are putting all of the responsibility on the women and not providing her any support. I can understand if you cannot, corporations find it difficult to give a male or father um, 3 months maternity leave, but at least 2 weeks. It should be the
Right.
minimal, because at this time the mother is still, unable to really move about freely and needs a lot of support. And I think it's a shame that our country in this regard is so far behind.
Mm.
Um, just for example, when I was unwell and my daughter had to have her nappy changed. So my husband changed her nappy, and I was at the toilet. And then I waited for him later on, because it was taking a long time. I know he knows how to change a nappy quickly, but the man that came out of the restroom, the male restroom, was looking at me and said, "Is that your husband and your daughter in there?" And I said, "Yes." And then he said, "Oh, you're so lucky because, he's like so hands-on." And then I am lucky, Alhamdulillah, but should he be congratulated just because he changes a nappy? It
Right.
like,
That's
am
a
I
very valid
congratulated?
point.
Right? Am I congratulated for all the thousands of nappies that I change? I mean, I am very appreciative, and I am blessed because I acknowledge that not a lot of men are like my husband. But if we only provided the support for women and allowed men to be as supportive and as participative, then maybe things would be better. Like nursing rooms or changing rooms, it shouldn't just be for females. What about fathers when they're out with their children? You're discouraging, active participation from the fathers as well when you do this. Um, so I think there's a lot that we can improve on, and starts with acknowledging that women need support, and we need to provide fathers the leeway or the room to support their wives, and also we shouldn't punish women who are pregnant or who have children, which many people or employers often do. I've had friends who are put in cold storage after they've come back from maternity leave,
Oh, wow.
be, because for the months that they were not there, they're not contributing. Um, so this is a common practice that's happening in many places, and it's a shame because the mindset needs to change. When a woman is on leave because she had given birth and is taking care of her children for that first 3 months, it is not something that she should be penalized for,
Mm.
to the extent that she doesn't feel like she wants to have more children because of the system, which is so unfriendly.
Right.
Um, so we need to understand that when we support women, we're not just supporting a woman, we're supporting the nation, essentially, you know.
Absolutely. Well said, Murni. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and being on the show. And I want to wish you happy Mother's Day. And
Thank you so
I would
much.
congratulate you for all the nappies that you've changed. And
Endless, but I'm done
and
with that.
yes, and thank you for raising wonderful children. Hopefully, they will be part of
Amin.
the better Malaysia that we are
Amin.
building. Thank you for being on the show. I'm Melisa Idris, and I will be back with you same time next week for another episode of The Future is Female. Thank you so much for watching, folks. And if it's not too early, Murni, Selamat Hari Raya.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Okay, take care. Thanks for watching, and good night,
Thank
folks.
you.